Professor Kingsley Moghalu, a former deputy governor at the Central Bank of Nigeria between 2009 and 2014, is often remembered for his work on far-reaching financial system reforms after the 2008 global financial and markets crisis. Since he left the Central Bank, Moghalu has been promoting good governance, economic transformation, and building global strategies that help economies and markets navigate today's very risky environment. This is Professor Kingsley Moghalu live here on Business Morning. Good morning, Professor, and it's good to have you here.
Morning.
We appreciate having you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for this interview. Professors are always known never to stop working. So they're always researching, they're always reading, and they're always doing something new. So what have you been doing? What are you pursuing at the moment, and why?
My immediate initiative now is the establishment of a new think tank in Nigeria called the Institute for Governance and Economic Transformation. And the purpose of this think tank is to educate Nigerians on basic economics and governance to enable citizens hold their leaders accountable. That way, our democracy can actually result in progress for us. In more recent years, I've been a professor of international business and public policy at the Fletcher School at Tufts University in Massachusetts in the US. But I'm now back to run this new think tank in Nigeria.
Where do you see the nexus between political leadership and economic growth?
It's actually not a nexus as such. But the two are joined at the hip. Without effective political leadership, there can never be economic growth, development, and transformation in any country. And the reason our country has had economic challenges for so many decades is precisely because our political leadership class has failed. Why have they failed? They have failed because they're incompetent. They have failed because they do not have the intellectual knowledge base and the vision that is required to create economic transformation. So the future will have to be different from the past if we are to make progress.
What type of political leadership would you want to see in practical terms?
Yeah. In practical terms, you know, the type of political leadership Nigeria needs is a leadership that is focused on what the people of Nigeria need, and that is how to create stability, inclusion. You know, you've got to have an inclusive governance style. You've got to have an inclusive economy that focuses on ordinary people. How do people create new businesses? How do you create jobs? The government doesn't create jobs. The government creates an environment where jobs are created. So a leader needs to understand this, and that means that you must understand economic policy. It's very, very critical.
I'm sure from your studies, you try to look at politics on one hand and leadership on the other. And you try to see in developed economies and countries and markets how partisanship is more of leadership than bickerings and things like that. Where's the problem here for Nigeria between those who are political practitioners and they want to transform being leaders?
Absolutely.
Which one really delivers sustainable growth, socioeconomic transformation, wealth creation for the people?
In recent times, actually, I've been fascinated and I've been talking a lot and writing a lot about the need for leadership as the main transformative force. In Nigeria, you have, you know, politics. It's all politics, but no leadership. It's all transactions, but no substance. You know, politics is different from leadership. Politics is something that generates leadership. And politics should be about who has the leadership vision that can move a country forward. But in our country, you know, we spend a lot of time driving a politics that is based on other things: ethnicity, which ethnic group is in power, which religion, and those kinds of things are very low-level things, and that's why we've remained a very poor country. Listen, we are 57 years old as a country, and the average income of Nigerians, the GDP per capita, is still $1,646. Our GDP per capita in 2016 was $2,177. In South Africa, it's over $5,000. In Malaysia, it's $9,000. And in Brazil, it's about $10,000. So, and these are emerging markets and, you know, countries that have actually developed in recent years. Why are we stuck where we are? Precisely because we don't have the right kind of leadership. So, what's the solution? I'm interested in solutions. The only solution for Nigeria is that there has to be a paradigm shift in its leadership selection process. We need a new generation of leadership that can take Nigeria into the 21st century.
Generation by age? Or by what? Is it by qualification? Or is it just by being youthful?
It's a combination of all. It's generational change based on perspective, based on vision, number one. Based on vision, number one. Based on experience. Based on age, yes. Age is important as well. We need younger leaders in Nigeria. You can't say to people that you are the youth and you continue to lead them into their own adulthood. What is happening in Nigeria is that our young people may retire being led by the same set of people who were leading them when they were sucking their mother's breasts. And that's just terrible, in my view. It shows the society is not transforming. It shows that the society is not progressing. So we're in a trap in terms of who actually is supposedly providing leadership. And the future cannot be created by those whose reference point is yesterday.
That's speaking a lot to political leadership and how they can give us what you call the right fiscal policy environment.
Sure.
Let's take this to the money street and talk about money. Let's
sure.
to the market and look at the monetary policy. Interpret where we are at the moment as far as monetary policy at the moment. We need, what type of monetary policy do you think we need to transform this economy, socio-economically speaking?
The first thing people need to understand about monetary policy is that it is in fact reactive to fiscal policy and to other variables in the macroeconomic environment. That's number one. So for example, why are interest rates in Nigeria today at 18–20%, in terms of average borrowing? It's precisely because of a number of things. One, there is high inflation. Inflation is the worst tax on the average common man. If there is inflation, what is the responsibility of a central bank? It is primarily to fight inflation so that there can be economic stability. It's a very unpopular thing to make interest rates high, but it is necessary in order to reduce the money supply. And when you reduce the money supply and inflation goes down, a better economic environment is created. Now, when fiscal policy, which is government's own responsibility in terms of revenues that the government earns and how the government manages them, and it's about taxation. Although in Nigeria, fiscal policy is not about taxation, or has not been. Fiscal policy has been about sharing oil rents, FAC, allocation committees. That tells you that it's a country that is a bit dysfunctional. In normal countries, fiscal revenue is about how do you generate income for the government based on a productive economy. Now, if the government is spending a lot of money on recurrent expenditure, which is what is happening in Nigeria, where 70–90% of our budgets are spent paying salaries and just recurrent, those things drive inflation. These are the things that make it essential for the central bank to maintain a tight monetary supply. So this is what is happening. Now, where should we be going in the future? The problem we need to solve in terms of monetary policy in Nigeria is that we need to first of all create a productive economy, because the value of, and this links into forex policy, the value of a country's exchange rate is determined by how productive the economy is.